Good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us. Welcome to the Ultimate Property Management Virtual Masterclass. This is part 3, hosted by Real Estate Investor. And today's third masterclass of 2021 is officially sponsored by WeConnectU, developers of intelligent property management software to enable you to scale and deliver more value to your clients. My name is Neil Peterson. I'm the founder of Real Estate Investor, South Africa's leading independent digital real estate platform for over 14 years already, geared for investors, landlords, developers, property practitioners, and entrepreneurs. Okay, so without further ado, I'd like to introduce you to our first speaker. He is a business strategist, keynote presenter, facilitator, and professional conference speaker. Would you please welcome the other Michael Jackson.
Excellent. Thank you very much indeed, Neil. And what a pleasure to be here with you, ladies and gentlemen. In terms of what Neil has said, trying to ignite your 2022 after, let's face it, what has been the most extraordinary 18 to 20 months that we've all experienced in human times. So I think what's important about what I want to present with you this morning, by way of setting the scene, is that, we need to understand where we are before we can think about where we're going. And I think it's fair to say that obviously fundamental disruption is absolutely everywhere. What we're seeing in the world of business right now is that old companies that used to dominate are giving way to young companies where technology dominates, and that seems to be the driving force. We're seeing companies now repositioning themselves and thinking about values beyond shareholder value that encompass the environment and social considerations all around that. It's all about, as well, using the data that's available to us in business to allow growth to come through forms of creativity. And I'll try and explain that, if I may, by really simplifying it and saying, well, basically, what we've seen is powerful shifts occurring in our lifetime, and how we engage with other human beings is now completely different. What we've seen, though, during the pandemic worries me a little bit. I think that the pandemic has exposed an awful lot of businesses who were running on outdated practices, looking at using operational excuse zones. And in fact, to my mind, I think they were hiding in plain sight. And a lot of people found business missing in action. And how often have you heard that phrase, I'm sorry, due to COVID-19, our service levels aren't what they should be because we've had to scale back, or some version of that. Exactly at the time when business should have been at the forefront of customer contact, it's been hiding away. And it really is the wrong thing to have done, because the most important strategic question that you could be asking yourselves for now into the future is this: when the pandemic is finally over, do you believe that people will be interacting with you the way they were before it began? And the answer categorically is no. So you need to find a way of overcoming that massive strategic question and answering it properly to enable you to move forward. And it's difficult because the market around us has changed, and our business models and styles of operation have also got to change quite dramatically. We're not very good at handling change. In fact, we resist it, and it's ingrained within us. Part of the natural human growth and development is to say, whoa, let me step back and think about change very carefully. I don't want to take it in a straight line where I literally go from surprise of the change through to absolute delivery. And we all got taught at junior school that the fastest way to get somewhere is in a straight line. And obviously, whatever changes, we want that end result, the delivery, to be a little bit better than what happened before. So we ought to take this straight line scenario across, going upwards, but in fact, we take this huge curve that comes through where we go through our normal human emotions. Initially, when we feel or hear about change, we have a surprise. It's kind of denial that steps in. The storm clouds start raging, and that denial soon passes into something like anger. And that becomes fear because we're afraid of the change, really, and we don't quite yet understand it. And we're getting further and further away from where we should be on the straight line. But, literally, we're heading downhill. And what happens is it takes us a long time to hit acceptance before we can start to get into it. The storm clouds break a little bit, the sun starts to pop out, and finally, we're all in belief again, with that thing and we all go, oh yeah, we're there, and I always knew we would. The problem is with the change curve is that that curve in its own right, if you dragged it out into a straight line, takes 3 times longer than the straight line journey does in its own regard. We're slow at responding to change. And particularly in businesses that are bound by, we've always done it that way, the red tape and the bureaucracy, especially if you've been successful in the past, it's hard to change and think about modifying your behavior. And that talks about the change curve, any form of change that you could consider. You know, it could have been the virus at the beginning. Think about the virus going all the way through to vaccine, and you can think about your own journey in that particular regard. Any form of change is something that our brains don't like terribly much. Here's why. What happens is everything we know in the world is based on our experiences, which is why that old wives' tale that said travel broadens the mind is actually very clever, because it means you meet different people, different cultures, different societies, and you interact with them. So you have new experiences. If you stay put, your experiences stay set, and they all become your beliefs. And if your beliefs are limited in their own particular style, that creates your behaviors and repetitive behavior over and over again. And as a result of repetitive behaviors, our actions, our outcomes are certainly minimized. Repetitive behavior is the resistance to change. It's the ignorance around change in its own regard. And it's something we've got to change dramatically by breaking our old beliefs and looking for the new experiences, which means embracing the way the world is right now. The fundamental human recipe for change has been quite simple. It's occurred during all of our lifetimes in that particular regard. And the recipe, let me share it with you, is quite simple. It's very technically orientated, but don't let that frighten you. You know, let's go back to when technology came into our lives with personal computing up front in the 1970s. A decade later, we get mobile phones, which is kind of remarkable. Yep, that's how old they are at the end of the 1980s. And that morphed into Wi-Fi and the internet and things like Google in the 1990s. All of those things, as the new century dawned, got set together. And we called it the decade of collaboration when the 21st century began in that particular regard. This decade was all about big data. Well, it was at least until the pandemic rather interrupted and put a handbrake on for a little while. But it's coming back, and it's coming at us hugely. And I'll explain what that's all about in a moment. So big data is quite significant in that regard. And let me just put to bed the speed of change. Whilst we've gone through those years or decades of change, let's think about how it looks now. Back in the 1980s, on your basic mobile phone, we had 1G, and that meant you could make a phone call. It seemed incredible that you could have a wireless phone call, but hey, that's what it was. 2G rolled around in the beginning of the 1990s, and that enabled us to play Pong and send text messages. How exciting was that? 3G brought in bigger and better wireless connectivity in that particular regard, and then it morphed into 4G, which put everything up into the cloud. We could share our pictures, our voice notes, our calls, our messages, and literally store everything in the cloud where, you know, we had unlimited storage capabilities. And that's what we're moving into now with 5G. The issue of unlimited capacity and the speed at which data will travel and continue to build. So don't get frightened or intimidated by that. That is the recipe and the speed of modern change. That's how you cook it properly. And that's what we need to consider what's going on now in terms of igniting our 2022. In short, or in simple terms, people have come to crave instantaneous, different, fresh, and exciting new connectivity. We almost want to tap on glass and just make sure that we've got an instant response that's different, fresh, and creative. And that's the speed at which the business is moving today, tapping on glass with unlimited data capabilities. Now, what does that mean? It means that easy or simple, intuitive, frictionless, engaging, and interactive levels of service built around people's needs are the things that now have to be created from the data that you have through technology. Understanding your market, responding to it effectively. Simple, intuitive, frictionless, engaging, interactive levels of service. That's when I talked about new businesses replacing old. Winning businesses of the day are doing exactly this. And what we need to be aware of is that we've got to bring ourselves into that level of scenario coming forward. It's almost like rejigging the DNA of your business. And in, again, fairly simple terms, we've got to think about the DNA of your company, your culture, and the way that you communicate to repackage that today for your colleagues, for the communities that you operate in, and from your customers. And the way to do that is through technology, your environmental stuff, and positioning all of those into the market at the right place and at the right time. So we can think of data as the oil for the technology machine in that regard. I mean, you all know that oil has no value in its raw form, like technology doesn't. But when you start putting data into your technology, when you've captured the information that you need, when you've interpreted it, it becomes highly valuable because it will help you shape the way that your business is rolling. So last century, what business did, learning about the basics of technology from the 70s up to the end of the century, we knew we had to modify our businesses. We knew people were getting friendlier and easier with technology. Hell, we had to get some of that technology ourselves. And basically, to win, what you needed to do was package your business around people and their technology needs and your technology uses and form almost partnerships. That seems almost out of date now, because the new way of looking forward in 2022 is using technology and data within a collaboration. And who are we collaborating with? Connected people, first of all, those people who I mentioned tap on glass for an instant answer. People today have become empowered, they've become involved, and they've become engaged. And technology in its own right, if you've heard about a phrase called the Internet of Things, for example, it just means that internet technology, all of those things are connecting to each other. And connected things are now instant, available, and secure. So with Alexa, for example, I walk into my home and I say, Alexa, turn on the lights. And Alexa turns on the lights for me. Alexa, turn on my television. Alexa, turn on my heating, whatever it might be. Things that are instant, available, and secure, because as customers, we're more empowered about this stuff, we're more involved in it, and we're more engaged with it. And what that means is we've got to measure up in business terms for what's coming now post-pandemic. And I'm afraid business doesn't do terribly well. How do we measure against where we should be? When you look at a survey of what modern business tends to be like, the stuff that's not winning is over-administered, it's over-managed, it's pretty poor at communication, worse so in the pandemic. It talks of delivering service to its marketplaces, but it doesn't. There's the occasional use of the word relationship, yet your customers tell you there's none. And when it comes to collaboration and interaction, old-fashioned businesses have very little of it. And that's primarily because they're poor at technology and they're poor at understanding data. So when people talk of a V-shaped recovery from the pandemic itself, the way that we should be is not like this that you can see on my slide now, but rather like this. You need to be properly managed and administered, not overly so. You need to be much, much better at communications and even better at service and relationships. And that means collaboration with all of your markets in the form that they want to collaborate with you through technology and the use of data. But don't worry if this frightens you, because hey, we've got partners and people around the world who will help you get there. But remember, you can't hide anymore and say, oh, I'm sorry, due to COVID, our levels of service aren't what they used to be. When you ask customers what they want, they're going to tell you categorically that that's the order, that's the rule book that they demand themselves that's in front of you right now. And if you think about property management in particular, because I've been talking about business in general terms so far, old style property management, folks, obviously was task-based. It was routine. It was paper and ink-based. It certainly wasn't focused on outcome-based. But now, new technology and automated services are helping you get there. They're helping you shape modern trust and loyalty with an opportunity in it for massive growth. It's all about redefining your own purpose, setting the new standards, if you will, and laying down the markers for where your business needs to be. And in business terms, that just means this. As asset types in property, and in fact, in all classes of asset types, develop into complexity now. Digital services, the Internet of Things, 5G, all of this is about to open up in the industry new, fresh, and very, very different opportunities. That's why we're on this webinar this morning. And in many respects, I think what you're going to be hearing about this morning is effectively what I would term a vaccine for business. We absolutely need to understand what's out there. We don't need to be frightened of it. We must embrace it, but we've got to start pulling ourselves up to a very, very definitive standard. I was saying to the team at Real Estate Investor yesterday when we were talking about this event coming up, you know, when you think about the speed and the way in which businesses connect with each other. My business bank is on my phone. I don't have a branch for it. I have a card that's on my phone, and my bank exists in real space. Yesterday, my card was obviously cloned, maybe at a petrol station, maybe at a supermarket, I don't know. And I got instant connotations that ping, 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 people were trying to get 300 here, 400 there, 200 there off my account. Or instantly, I was able to stop my card online as it warned me that these things weren't from me. Instantly, I'm able to connect with my digital bank. Instantly, they connect me to a live human being. Instantly, that live human being says, don't worry, we're sorting this out. Fraud is taking care of it. We'll cancel the card now. Oh, I see you've just done that. Great. The card is canceled. There's nothing to worry about. The money will not go off your account. The new card has already been ordered for you, and it'll be delivered to you today. It might even come during this webinar, I'm not sure. But probably the post normally arrives for me in the UK at about 1 o'clock in the afternoon. New card there and ready, simple and straightforward. That's the way we need to have businesses operating today, geared to me, not seemingly geared to the bank, although obviously what that bank does is collect my fees. That's a good service that it offers and a service that we all pay for as modern customers. We need to talk about today the service you can start delivering in terms of upping your asset styles of management and upping what's going on around us. The world is moving into that space where everything is going to be rented very, very soon. You're already at the forefront of that. Now is the time to seize the day and ignite your 2022.